Did you know that with ShinePress, you keep 100% ownership of your content and receive 100% of the royalties? Discover even more benefits by scheduling your free 30-minute consultation today. They are illuminating stories and empowering authors. Go to shine-press.com to learn more. Be sure to ask for Jody. She's pretty fantastic.
Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. Today is a great day to have a great day, and we have a great guest with us that's going to help us do just that. But before we get started with Dr. Lucette, I need you to follow this podcast, because if you're not following, then you won't hear about great guests like this, and then you won't know, and that would be not okay with me. So if we're going to spread some productive joy, you have to follow this podcast. So do that right now. And I am getting ready to introduce you to my new friend, who I'm super excited to tell you about. She is a lot of things. She's a veterinarian. She's a speaker. She's an author. She's a coach. She's also a scuba diver and a foodie who loves to cook, and she meal preps, but she doesn't believe in depriving herself of anything either. She loves really good food, and it will only enjoy it if it's wonderful and fantastic, and dessert is a must, but it's got to be good. So would you please join me in welcoming Dr. Lucette Beall? Dr. Lucette, welcome to Productive Joy.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So you hail to us from Texas, is that correct?
Yeah.
And people are interesting. So the reality is that they'll only listen long enough to get excited. So what would you say to them in like 30 seconds or less that would make them know that they want to listen to this podcast?
You can do and be or have anything you want when you learn to live from the inside out.
Goodness, this sounds like fun. And I know you help people live extraordinary lives, which I appreciate so much. So a couple of years ago, I learned that you're supposed to be able to explain the problem that you solve in one word. And it was really hard for me to do that. And the word I picked was mediocre, because I want to solve mediocrity by making people extraordinary. So you're going to teach me some things today that I think I can use for sure. So tell us your story, because you have a pretty incredible one. Tell us kind of what got you to the point where you were helping people live their best lives.
So, yeah, does our stories always start somewhere with figuring out how to help ourselves, right?
Right.
And then we realize, so honestly, of course, your journey starts. I think the biggest part of my journey started when, on the heels of a divorce in which I did not ask for child support,
Sure.
I found myself diagnosed with cancer. I was a self-employed professional, so I didn't have any paid sick days. Every time I left work, we weren't making any money, and I was facing 15 months of cancer treatment,
Oh my goodness.
including multiple surgeries, chemotherapy, and daily radiation. And so it was overwhelming at first, obviously.
Ah,
But the thing is that I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to fail, right? I didn't feel like I really didn't feel like failure was an option. So then it's figuring out how to make sure I didn't, right? Because I was the sole source of financial support for myself and my daughter. And so I learned a lot in that time period. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about resilience, how to narrow your focus down, and how to look for the positive. But from that journey, then a year after I finished my cancer treatment, my brother suffered a severe traumatic brain injury, and he wasn't supposed to live, and then he wasn't supposed to wake up from a coma, and then he was never supposed to get out of an institution, and he did all those things. But 2 years later, he found himself in the middle of the divorce in a state mental institution. And I felt really strongly called to help him because no one else could. And my bankers, against the advice of my bankers, my parents, trusted advisors, I stepped out of my business to help him because when I brought him home, he couldn't be left alone for me to go to work 40 hours a week.
Hmm.
And I took a big risk.
Ah.
And I borrowed money from his boss, and, I got overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So I ended up struggling for little over 3 years, really, after I brought him home because things did get tough financially. And then I started telling myself I was really what made those 3 years so hard and what made the solutions not come was what I was telling myself, in all honesty. Didn't realize it at the time, right? Because I didn't
Yeah.
understand all of that yet. And so, I felt unworthy. I felt like a failure. Instead of feeling proud of myself that I did something no one else would do and trusting and believing that I could find my way out, I just struggled. I showed up to work, but I struggled. And I was honestly, when I look back, punishing myself, like not doing things to care for myself, working hard, but not making sure, and not trusting that things could work out. And one day, after about a little over 3 years, I reached a point where I had to make a decision. Am I willing to go bankrupt and lose 17 years of business and clients? And I decided that I was not.
Mm.
And so from that, I knew I had to do something different, right? There's
Yeah.
no way I could keep doing what I was doing if I was. So once I made that decision, I took back what I'd learned going through cancer. And then I added on, I started getting up every single morning and I created a morning routine to get myself in the best mental space before I went to work. And at first, it was still really hard. I'd go to work and creditors are calling and challenges are coming up and I'd lose my mindset. But as I continued to do the morning routine, I got better. And the difference is I went 3 years of struggle and, feeling mired and like there's no solutions. In 1 year, I went from several $100,000 in debt and owing the IRS back payroll taxes, having his boss threaten to call the note because I'd missed some payments, all these things. I went from there in 1 year to almost completely out of debt. And 8 months later, I went on to pay a big cash down payment and buy my house.
Oh my goodness.
And in the process, I gained the tools. And then right as I was coming out of the financial things, I was almost out of debt. I was really doing well. That was the fall of December of 2019. And my mother's health really started going downhill.
Oh, no.
My father had dementia, but they were still living on a 500-acre ranch in Oklahoma, about 2.5 hours from me, because my mother did not want help. And so, of course, this whole crisis unfolded. I lost my mother in January of 2020. I had to put my dad in memory care. Everything they owned was still on that ranch, and we're going into COVID
I just
shutdown.
got that COVID.
Yeah, I'm running an essential business, meaning it has to be open. I have all of their estate. I have my dad in memory care. I'm still have things. I have a trustee from my brother. It was incredible. And I promised myself I would not go back down that path that I had,
Yeah.
right? So I used every tool in the toolbook to keep myself, even through grief, to manage to run the essential business, show up for everything that I needed to show up for, deal with the estate. And I was coming home to an empty house every day because I lived by myself. So that was my pod, right?
Yeah.
When you weren't really allowed to.
Yeah.
So then I really was able to take those tools and quantify them and know what they were and how to share and teach them and name them. And out of that, came resilience. Like I was in yes, it was hard. Yes, there was grief, but also I knew how to look for the beauty in every moment, look for the good, find the good, so that I had the resilience to get up every day, so that I was not depressed, that I was not I found joy even in those moments. And as you call it, which I absolutely adore, productive joy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so then, I went on to build the 7-figure business, but by then my calling was different.
Yeah.
It became
Definitely.
my passion once I understood this and got to live it and understand that an extraordinary life is from the inside out. And the resilience comes from living that way. And there are tools so we can learn how to retrain those thoughts, retrain our brain, keep our brain in the game, flip the script. Those are some of the things that I use because of our 60,000, average person has about 60,000 thoughts a day. Of those, over 90% are repetitive.
Mm.
Think autopilot. Our brain just goes down it. We're not keeping our brain in the game. It's just doing its own thing. And the National Science Foundation says 80% of our thoughts are negative. And that's a lot of our autopilot thoughts. And that's a lot of what is creating disease inside of ourselves. I know that's where my cancer come from, is stress and anxiety and not knowing how to handle all of these things, not knowing how to acknowledge them and make decisions and change them, right? You're just living in them and not understanding all of that. And so I don't regret any of it because what I get to do now would never have happened without that.
Yeah.
And I lost my brother in October of this year unexpectedly. And so the full circle moment is knowing that who I get to be now is a product so much of my love and relationship with him. And I don't believe I would have had the courage to step out for him without going through the cancer, right?
Mhm.
Because what I learned then gave me the courage to do something everybody told me not to. I don't regret the 3 years of challenge because now I have the tools and I understand them. Like I had some of them after cancer, but I didn't understand everything that I had used. I couldn't quantify it, write it down, understand it, know how to pick up that tool and use it, and when I need to use it.
Yeah.
And now I have all of those things. And so nothing can take me out of my game now. I am resilient. I am unstoppable. And I understand that I can receive it. You only receive as big as you believe.
Right.
So if things aren't unfolding the way I'm looking for it, I need to go back and look at what am I telling myself? What am I truly believing, even if I think I'm believing something bigger? Because if I believe it, it's coming, it's happening. And to be able to give that gift of being able to live in joy and know that you can figure out anything, and it's not you, like you just put it out there. There is a solution.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing the solutions, like whether it's an email. I've had junk mail turn out to be a solution. I'm operating from the space of, I know there's a solution. And I know you're going to show it to me. God, the universe, whatever you want to say, that you have connections to where people show up, podcasts show up, opportunities show up
Yeah.
when you're in that space of believing.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun.
Well, and you are just a light and a life of that everybody needs. And I love the not just enthusiasm, but your willingness to share what you went through to show that other people can get through it too. And that's a special gift. It's a special gift to be able to share what you've learned with others and make it into repeatable steps, right? Which sounds like that's exactly what you did. Is you said, okay, these things happened to me. I'm going to analyze this. I'm sure your doctor mind said, all right, I'm going to figure this out. Right? I mean, it's a little different than taking care of animals, and yet I'm gonna figure this out and turn it into something that's repeatable that other people can latch on to, and they don't have to suffer the way I did. I'm so sorry that you went through all you went through, and yet I'm so grateful that you turned it into something special and something terrific. So well done on you.
Thank you. I think it's so important. And sometimes in those moments, we don't appreciate it. I'm better now at looking for the silver lining or the opportunity in every challenge because now I understand it's always there.
Yeah.
Like when we don't, that's when the challenges get really hard because they seem insurmountable.
Yeah.
And it's the place that we're operating from and it's what we're telling ourselves.
Mhm.
So much more than whatever event happens to us, it's how we're talking to ourselves, what we're telling ourselves, because beliefs are just thoughts that you keep thinking. And so what happens to people that really cripples them is they've been telling themselves the same story for years.
Mhm.
And because they're telling them this, that's how life is unfolding for them. So they think that's how life is.
Yeah.
So they have a hard time choosing to believe something new. But we can. And that's where my tools, reverse, reframe, rebuild, come in. And I've also created a subscription program. And the reason I've created that subscription program is because I saw that a lot of my clients, the biggest challenge is what they're telling themselves.
Yeah.
Like they could intellectually understand what I was saying, but they're not recognizing what they're telling themselves. And then they don't know how to change that.
Yeah.
And again, what we're telling ourselves is our thoughts. When we tell it to ourselves over and over with these autopilot negative thoughts, they become our belief system. And then we can't see the opportunities that would change that. They're still coming to us, but we absolutely don't see them as that. We tell ourselves things like, I don't know if that's for me. I'm not ready.
Right.
God will let me know, but God's sending you, God, the universe, whatever you call it, is sending you the message in all ways. But you're telling yourself it's not for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by you have to believe you can only receive as big as you believe. It's all there for you. And the other thing I see all the time is people will have a dream in their heart, but then they're like, well, I don't know if if God is saying that, or whatever, I don't know if this is for me. If you feel it in your heart, and when you think of it, you feel, without outside influence, you feel joy, that is it.
Yeah.
And then what happens is I was just talking to a doctor friend of mine, veterinary friend of mine yesterday, about, she has this dream to build a clinic. And when she just thinks about that, she feels great. But then she starts telling herself all these reasons why not. And then she doesn't feel good. She's creating the not feel good.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And we had that conversation, and I said, I'll send you this to help you with this. And that's Flip the Script has meditations to help you get out of that, short too, because I don't believe you don't have to have a 30 or 45-minute meditation. And my morning routine, the purpose of the meditation is really to shut off the negativity, right? And get myself in the bigger belief, right? So that's when I create them, that's how I create them. And because sometimes what you have a hard time shutting off the noise. So if you're trying to do a quiet meditation and your brain is just noisy, guided medication really helps take you into that different space and allow it in. So then you can journal and do I am powerful intentions, right? And it's really awesome if you can decide who you really want to be.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be your end all at 80, right? Who do you want to be this year? Who do you want to be in 2025? And then act as if you're already that person and do your I am statements from there. I am a New York Times bestselling author. I am, a mindset expert. I already know I'm a mindset expert. Why am I not telling people I'm a mindset expert?
Yeah.
It's a difference in, right? I realized, I need to update my social media things. I thought about that. And it's like, it's not just a coach, it's an expert on how to think and differently. And when you do that, the door opens.
Yeah.
It's huge.
That's wonderful. And what I appreciate most is the practical pieces. Like you said, this is a 5-minute meditation. This isn't a 40-minute meditation. I think we, by nature as humans, overcomplicate things quite frequently. Right? Like, and we think,
And then we don't get started, right?
because it's paralysis by analysis. Okay, that looks too complicated for me. I'm just not going to do it. And so you got started and you are sharing that with others. So if I were to join your subscription, I would get this kind of encouragement daily. Like how does that work?
So you can go and pick and choose. Now, maybe one of these days we'll do that. So there's already a ton of content on there, and we are always creating more. So we create flip the scripts in all different ways. Some of them are really short. The goal being you have an encounter with a client or a customer and you're feeling bad. A 5-minute flip the script that you can put in to help get that, because all you're doing is thinking about it and wanting to talk about it. And in that mode, you've given away your point of power to them, right? You're allowing their bad mood to negatively continue to impact your day. And you don't want to do that, right? But sometimes it's hard to change that voice. So flip the script is a way to help you. And sometimes, so I create them for myself now. That's how right? And sometimes if you have somebody, especially if it's somebody like an ongoing relationship, say a sister-in-law or a mother or your parents or your child, a teenager you're struggling with, or, a younger child that has a challenge, and you are like, I need to get in a better space because I am part of this, right? I need to control my aspect of it, and you're struggling with it. Then flip the scripts are ways for you to see that in a different light. So endless categories will continue to be created, and people can go on and put in ideas and suggestions, and they are, and we do. But sometimes it takes more than one to get yourself. The whole point is, when do I feel better? Because now I'm in a better space. I can't find a solution for working with my teenager if all I do is talk negatively about the last conversation we had, and I tell other moms, and because feeling justified does not give me a solution. Do I want to be right, or do I want to have a better relationship?
Yeah.
Because how can I help my child, or how can I have a better relationship with my spouse, or how can I have a better relationship with somebody at work if all I'm doing is being irritated and aggravated, and that's the conversation I'm having?
Yeah.
And to live an extraordinary life is solution based. There's a solution. And that doesn't mean I have to change them. You're not going to change them. But sometimes what happens is, even if someone is fairly toxic, if you look for the one good thing you can find in them and you focus on that before you enter into a conversation with them, what's going to happen is you're going to start to draw out the better in them. It doesn't change them, but it absolutely can change your relationship with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if it's of influence like your child, over time, it gives them tools to see things differently when you aren't triggered by whatever they're doing and you're able to stay in a good space.
Yeah. Well, and to me, I'm hearing sphere of control versus sphere of influence. So I often use this analogy, like if you put your fingers together and look through that teeny tiny little hole, that's our sphere of control. But our sphere of influence is as wide as our arms will go. I think sometimes we look for the control, and when we don't find it, we think everything is untouchable and we can't fix it or we can't help it. But what I'm hearing is that if we want to live an extraordinary life, we have to recognize our sphere of influence. That's all the things that we're able to think differently and speak to ourselves differently and, have a different morning routine and have a different way of work so that great things can happen. So this podcast is called Productive Joy, and it's for leaders who want to be strategic in doing things differently. And so if you had to define productive joy, what would be your definition?
So for me, I think of productive joy is the difference between the way I was going to work before I had that aha moment and started to have a morning routine, take control. And from that, I would also say 100% responsibility for yourself, your emotions, your choices, your actions. 0% responsibility for anybody else's emotions, actions, or choices. And that's important because when I'm grounded in that, which really would create productive joy, it means if I have an employee come to work and they're struggling at home, and so they're coming to work and they're aggravated or they're irritated or they're short, if I am not taking 100%, if I think that their bad mood is affecting my life, my productive joy, my day, I'm mad at them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And
Or-
so I'm feeling like I'm giving away my point of power and I can't help them if I'm mad at them.
Right.
It's not productive. Right. But in any conversation I have with them, like, you need to not act like this, how does that help them?
Nope.
They're already struggling with where they're at, right? But if I am able to say, I get to be joyful, I get to have a great day, even though they're not, now I can have compassion
Right.
and boundaries because I can say, gosh, I'm sorry you're not having a great day. When you're in a better space, we'll have this conversation and give them the time to go and get in that better space. I don't have to have a conversation. And sometimes you don't have to say anything. I've had moments where an employee was slamming things around and I said something, then got that reaction, went in my office, did my own thing, knowing they were going to have to come to me for what we needed to do next and giving a clear signal that I wasn't approaching them until they came to me in a different space without saying anything.
Yeah.
They came to me in a great space. We had a productive day and they never acted to me that way again in that day. And as I was consistent, that behavior started going away.
Yeah.
Right. But if I would have called her on the behavior, she couldn't really explain it. She had things at home that she did not know how to deal with.
Right.
All I'm doing is making her feel more inadequate than she already feels. So I'm not going to get productive. If what I did didn't work, then you might have to say, I do need you to take some deep breaths, figure out what can help you get in a better space so that you can operate, you can leave home at home and come to work and operate in a different space. I wouldn't in that space and offer her, if you have the option in your work or whatever, tools. Like, do you have somebody she can go talk to? Great. Give her the opportunity, preferably give her the opportunity on the clock because there might be money issues there too, right?
Sure.
If you're able to do that, then what happens is productive joy happens in your entire business place, right?
Mhm.
But it comes from not taking responsibility for and not taking it personal,
Right.
right?
Super powerful. And as we think about, who's listening, these are our leaders, right? They are leading somebody somewhere to do something. And I think what you just taught us and what you just reiterated to us is that we don't need to bear their burdens, other people's burdens, whoever they are. They could be
Yes.
our kids, they could be our, family members, or they could be our employees or our boss. It's not our job to take that on. It's our job to recognize that we can only control our controllable, which is us, and then we can influence the way that they treat us. I think that there's a whole lot of wisdom and power in that because we do tend to take on the weight of the world, everybody else's problems and everybody else's thinking, instead of recognizing that, no, actually, that's not my burden to bear. It is my job to create space where people can feel joy, but that doesn't mean that I can evoke them to do anything. I can't cause anybody to do anything, right? And I think once we realize that, that's a very freeing feeling.
Well, what happens when you don't do that is you get sucked dry.
Yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
you don't have the energy to help the volume of people. When I'm very, very clear that my job is to stay in my point of power, meaning I'm not taking if I'm taking something personally, I immediately know that that's work I need to do myself,
Yeah.
right? If there's any jealousy for any reason, that's definitely work I need to do myself.
Mhm.
Because if I'm in that space, then I'm believing that I can't have it. That's why I feel that way.
Right.
I can have anything I want to have. So then I want to let go of that, be joyful for everyone else if they're in a good place, knowing that I can achieve it too if that's truly what I desire.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is when we let go of what's not ours. So if I'm clear that when I'm working with anyone or I'm speaking in a group or I'm talking in a podcast or I'm talking in a workshop, what is mine is what am I giving? And I want to give as much as I can in that time space. What keeps me in my power and allows me to have so much to give is I'm not responsible for what you do with it.
Yeah.
And I understand completely that God, the universe, source energy, whatever your name for it, is going to give you lots of opportunities to get it. I'm one of them, but I'm not and I don't know how you need to use it. And I am not egotistical enough to ever take that on because everybody's story and everybody's experience and everybody's journey is their own.
Yeah.
And as I've learned to have that autonomy for mine, I certainly want you to have that. So even a one-on-one client, I'm not going to tell you what to do
Right.
because that's not my job.
Mhm.
And I have no right to do that.
No. Well, and the reality is you don't really have the answers either. Yes, you have some
Yeah.
tools. And yes,
Yeah.
but the person with the problem is also the person with the solution. You just have to
Yeah.
ask the right questions to get them there. And
The whole goal is to give them the tools.
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
sometimes when they've struggled in the same space, it's just because they didn't actually have the tools. They have to pick up the tools. I can't do that for them.
Yeah, that part. It's one thing to have a hammer, it's something else entirely to remember to use it, right? Because you can hammer a nail with a shoe and it'll go in the wall, but it's going to ruin the shoe and make a mess of the wall, right? Pick up the hammer. We've got to actually use the hammer. And Dr. Lucette, I love everything you're doing. And it is clear to me that you have lived it, therefore you can speak it. And that's a big difference than somebody who just hears these things and says, oh, well, I can tell you what to do. Yeah, but you can't because you haven't walked in my shoes. And it is also clear to me that you're not trying to walk in anybody else's shoes. You're just admitting what you've done in your shoes and then how that might be able to help others. That's pretty great. So, how might one of my listeners find you? What's the best way for them to cross paths with you and learn from you?
So my website is www.drlucette.net. You can find me under Dr. Lucette, Dr. Lucette Beall, Beall, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Gone and come back already. YouTube, because my whole goal is, and I also have a new book coming out. Probably it should be out very shortly, actually. Now that we're getting into April, so and the subscription channel is out now, and extraordinary life is everybody, and you can learn to live an extraordinary life at any age. You can learn to live from the inside out. You can learn to change your thoughts and have the tools to know how to change your thoughts so that you get to live from the inside out so other people don't take you out. Yes, you're still going to have moments when you are angry at somebody or, have feelings of overwhelmment, but you'll have the tools to overcome them, to get back into that good space. We're meant to have those challenges because that leads to life would be boring if nothing ever happened that helped us learn to live a bigger, better, more extraordinary life.
Yeah.
And so we're supposed to have all those emotions. We just have the opportunity to not let them drown us, to not stay in them.
Yeah.
You know, when you get mad, what happens is we choose, and then we've become society, I think, and you mentioned it, I think before we got on, but we have become used to mediocrity and bleh and not feeling good and acting like that's okay.
And if
And
not,
even knowing that we're choosing it.
yeah. Yeah.
We think it's choosing us. We don't know we're choosing it. And that's what I, so much want people to understand, right? When you decide to, and when you're talking bad to yourself, if you're talking bad about anybody else, if you're talking bad about the world, any of those things, you are out of your point of power because you can't control those things. And you are choosing to feel bad when you could choose to change those thoughts, get back in your point of power, and have extraordinary ideas, life-changing ideas, awesome moments, like even taking a walk. Listen to the birds singing. You can listen to a great podcast, but a lot of times I want to notice that mockingbird that's hopping across the street and talking to me.
Absolutely.
I want to hear the cardinal and look up and see him in the tree and feel like he's just there giving me the message that I'm right where I need to be. Right? And you can choose to look around. You can see so much beauty. You can see so much synchronicity. The right podcast shows up at the right time. You are thinking something that is a challenge, and either you get an email or you get a podcast or you get a phone call or a text. And if you appreciate it and see it and savor that it came for you, it's not coincidental, then you start to understand that really and truly, whatever you want to call it, God, the universe is always conspiring for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we just have to get in that space of learning how to change our thoughts that are blinding us to seeing that and looking for it.
Ugh. Well, people need more of you in their life for sure. And now they know where to find you, which is really great. And I'm so honored that you chose to spend 30 minutes with our crew because honestly, this is productive joy. This is creating the right mindset to be able to see the good because the good is there. The bad's there too, but the good is there. And where we choose to focus is what we're going to see. So I could talk to you forever, but I know we're on a time crunch. So can I ask you some rapid fire questions?
Sure.
Okay, these are fun. Speaking of, what is your definition of fun?
Anything that makes you feel joyful inside. So for me, I love to go for walks. I love to be in nature. I love to scuba dive. Oh, I love, love, love. And that's a new hobby for me. But the peace and the beauty, the things that you learn, but also the beautiful people, the under the ocean, what you see, it's just amazing. I love to cook. I love food. What do you love? Whatever you love, that's no one needs to validate it but you.
Yeah.
And make sure you acknowledge what really brings you joy. Sometimes we get in a space where we don't know. And I know I've been in spaces where I was so focused on doing. You gotta be.
Yeah,
You
be
gotta
that
let
too.
yourself be, right?
That is so true. All
And
right.
that's something I actually do have to work at because
Yeah,
I
me too.
love what I do, and I have to step back and remind myself to spend time with people that I love in
Yeah.
different ways, right? And book it into my calendar and reach out. I'll find that I'm so busy, people they're not reaching out to me because they think I'm too busy. And the second I reach out to them, they're so excited. And so it's like I do live a busy life, so sometimes it needs to be a little bit more me reaching out
Yeah.
because I I love being in that space of, having joyful, busy days, but also want to make sure I nurture the people that nurture me, and I nurture me by making sure I spend time doing
There's a
things that make
positive
me
feedback
happy.
loop.
Exactly.
Definitely. All right. Next question. How do you know that you're showing up as your authentic self?
And I didn't know that for such a long I didn't even know who my authentic self was when I started this journey. And now I know, oh, I'm so clear and it's so fun. And I know if I'm not in my point of power, I'm not in my authentic self. So if I'm not feeling good, I want to use tools to get myself in a better feeling place so that I do show up as my authentic self and I'm not getting knocked out of, you know, I don't want to be at work and not be in my best space possible. I don't want to be on a I don't want to be anywhere and not be in my best place, you know? And sometimes that means if there's something that's causing that, man, I'm going to spend the time to get myself back in that mental space. I'm going to take that time to do that, which is flip the scripts for me. And so that's exactly why I created it for others.
Oh, I love that. And I'm glad you created it for others. How do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Because I don't have worse days.
Oh,
And the reason I don't is because I completely understand if I'm not in a space to do something about it right then. I don't wait anymore. I know that if I'm not having a good day, it's in my head
hmm.
and that I can change that. I can change my thoughts and change that day. And I don't have to wait for the next day. I don't have to wait for anything. I immediately have to take care of where I'm at right now. And now, saying that, I recently lost my brother, and I did have some challenging moments because when you're in a grief space or you're having maybe you've just been diagnosed with cancer, that's grief space in a way because you're grieving
100%.
knowing that you were 100% healthy and having to go through that next phase. So you may have more moments. So I may be doing flip the scripts for myself multiple times during the day when I'm in that space, but also be kind to myself.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying toxic positivity, like I can't have a grief moment. I just know that I can have a moment where I'm feeling grief and then acknowledge the good
Yeah.
and see it from a different perspective that makes me savor it a little more and be in a better space. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes total
So
sense.
maybe I have this moment where my brother was my biggest cheerleader and I'm missing the fact that he won't know something or I can't tell him something. But then I stop and think, but aren't I blessed that I got to have him as long as I did? Aren't
Mhm.
I blessed that he was my brother, his personality in every way? Aren't I blessed that I get to be who I am because of him? And out of that, I can move into the next space better. And I'm okay so when I say I don't have terrible days, I don't, but it may not be, every day is not the same level,
Right,
right?
right, right. Right.
Sometimes it's a level of peace.
Yeah.
And so the only point is get myself in the best feeling place I can be at that moment and
Right.
be okay with that.
Right.
Like, but it's rather than wallowing in the worst phase, it's, oh, I can get myself in somewhat better place. Where can I get to? And generally what happens over that is I realize instantly I gave myself more time for nurturing. I made sure that I went on a trip that would help my mindset. I scheduled it and went on it and I scheduled more. So I'm like, because I realized I was struggling a little bit. So start looking for tools to help me be in a better space because I can't serve others if I don't serve me.
Right. Well, and that's what I hear from you is that you recognize that you can control your controllables, but there aren't many of those. And then you can influence all the other things and you can approach them with a systematic way that you've created for others, which is pretty awesome. So I have one final question for you. People can really only remember one major thing from each 30-minute segment that their brains are absorbing. So if people could only remember one thing from our conversation today, what would you really like them to remember?
So I would say beliefs are just thoughts that you keep thinking, and you can change your thoughts and change your beliefs. And there are plenty of tools to do that, and you are worthy of that. If you're not living your best life, if there are things that you would like to be different, you can. You absolutely can change your thoughts and change your beliefs, and you are worthy of an extraordinary life, and you can create it at any age.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you for that reminder. And thank you for sharing your beautiful story on productive joy. I know that our listeners appreciated the ability to relate to things not being perfect. And yet here you are, and you're smiling through it and doing some really awesome stuff because of it. So well done on you. And thank you so much. I know you could have been doing a lot of other things right now, but you chose to spend time with the Productive Joy family. And we're really grateful for that.
Thank you. I love, love, love what you're doing, and I 100% believe in it. So it's absolutely my productive joy to get to be here and share, my message and ways for anyone to get there
Yeah.
because I truly believe that everyone is worthy. We were born worthy. And my goal is to give as many people as possible those tools.
Yeah. Well, because the reality is you don't earn your worth, you are born with it. And so I think some of us think you have to do something to earn it, and that's just simply not true. So thank you for reminding all of us of all of those things. And so for my Productive Joy listeners, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for learning from Dr. Lucette and from spending time figuring out ways to change how you do things. And as always, I want to leave you with the idea that there's some nugget of wisdom that you can grab from today that will help you turn fun into action.